Although we are sharing this year's events virtually, the festival is based in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and we respectfully acknowledge the land on which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk, whose culture has been lost forever and can never be recovered. We also acknowledge the island of Uktahumguk, Newfoundland, as the unceded traditional territory of the Beothuk and the Mi'kmaq, and we acknowledge Labrador as the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Innu of Ntsinan, the Inuit of Nunatsiavut, and the Inuit of Nunatuhavut. We recognize all First Peoples who are here before us, those who live with us now, and the 7 generations to come. As First Peoples have done since time immemorial, we strive to be responsible stewards of the land and to respect the cultures, ceremonies, and traditions of all who call it home. As we open our hearts and minds to the past, we commit ourselves to working in a spirit of truth and reconciliation to make a better future for all.
Hi, Ann.
Hi.
Yeah, it's nice to actually, well, I guess virtually meet you. Where are you right now?
I'm in Toronto.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess just to start off, I just like to say thanks for being here on behalf of the St. John's International Women's Film Festival, first of all. We're super excited to have you. And so yeah, this is the Seen and Heard Cinematography Masterclass with Ann Tipper, and is a CSA award-winning cinematographer whose resume includes a variety of shorts, features, and TV work, including Astrid and Lilly Save the World, which was most recently shot here in Newfoundland the fall and winter of 2021. My name is Kyla. I'm a second assistant camera from Torbay, Newfoundland. I'm thrilled to be chatting with Ann today, and I have heard such wonderful things about you, so stoked to have this opportunity to actually chat with you, because I could not get out for any days on Astrid and Lilly, unfortunately.
No, we tried to have you out.
I know, I wanted to, and it looks so good. Like, even the trailer, I was just like, yes, like this is like a fun TV show. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love the show. It's so good. The actors, everyone is amazing, and I think it's such a important and awesome show. And thank you so much, Kyla, for having me, and the festival for having me. That's so lovely. And it is so nice to finally meet you.
I know you too. I'm excited. So if we want to get right into it, I mean, I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of your background and what led you to the career path of a cinematographer. I understand that you went to Ryerson and studied film there. Is that right?
I did. I went to Ryerson Film School. Yeah, I grew up in a small town in Ontario. We didn't have a film class or a photography class or anything like that. So I was kind of into like painting and drawing. And that's what I was going to go to university for. I applied for a bunch of those programs. And I started making kind of like home video films with one of my best friends, Zazu, who is also in film now. Zazu Myers is an amazing production designer. And we were kind of like, oh, this is fun. And a friend of ours had applied to the film program, and I kind of just was like, yeah, sure, I'll apply, we'll see. And then I got in and I was like, holy smokes, this is amazing. And it's funny, like looking back on it, because I'm like, it seems like such a risk for me to do that, because I had like no experience, and it just seems like kind of out of character for me now looking back on it, but I went for it, and I don't know, and now I'm here.
Yeah, that's what I say to people too. Anytime like I'm asked about my industry, it's like, what made you do it? I'm like, somebody said they needed a camera trainee, and I was like, do I have to know anything? And they were like, no. And I was like, great.
Yeah, you just try it and then you get hooked, because it's totally. So like exciting and amazing. And yeah.
So growing up, were there any specific movies or shows or like any piece of, I guess, anything on television that really got you like that now you look back on and you find it like it was formative, even if you didn't really know at the time?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things. I love like musicals and movies and shows, and I watch kind of like everything, and I still kind of watch like everything. But I guess the thing that jumps out in my mind is kind of a weird one. It's Requiem for a Dream. I watched that in high school. And it really like shook me.
I was literally
Um,
just going to say, I feel like lots of people watch that at that age, and it's like, what
yeah,
did I just experience?
it's such a powerful film, and they do such a good job of making you uneasy and uncomfortable and just really like affecting you. And I was like, wow, a movie can make you feel all of these things. This is like crazy. Like it really hit me. And so I thought that was so awesome that film and TV could do that and have that effect on people. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest things that kind of
Yeah, because did you, like, as you said, you were more so an artist in like outside of the film world. So had you previously thought of movies as something being like art before you got into it? Or did it kind of change your perception, like when you got into film school and you realized like literally painting with light is a thing as opposed to like painting with paint?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I like sat down and like thought about
Yeah.
it. Like there are definitely movies that were so inspiring and they made me so excited, but I don't know if I specifically had a moment where I was like, this is art,
Yeah,
which
you
I
just
feel
kind
like
of
I
like,
just knew maybe. I don't know.
yeah. I
Um,
asked that because again, from my personal experience, it's just like you don't realize, I guess this kind of segues into my next question, like when you're working with a director, how
mhm.
you as the cinematographer, like it's such a collaborative process. And I didn't understand that until I watched it happen.
Mm.
That I was like, oh, the DP really, like it's the director's vision, but the DP is the one who creates it. And like, so like, how do you like to work with directors to kind of crack into their brain? Because it can be such a subjective thing. Like you're
Yeah.
trying to interpret what somebody else sees in their head. And aside from storyboarding or like lookbooks,
Yeah.
how do you really like come to create something with that person that you're both happy with?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think it is about like you basically said it there. Like it's really getting on the same page with them. And I always try to get as much time with them as I can. I think prep is like some of the most fun times and also just like the most important because you're really trying to understand each other and you're trying to create a language together. So I think I mean, sharing as many images as possible. I love sharing like photography, and it doesn't even have to be related to film and photography and TV. It can be a feeling or music or just a color palette or something that they found really moving. It's funny because I love to just talk to them about everything to try and understand them better as an artist and also just go through the script and kind of go through like the themes and the beats and what is the most important thing here, like what is the thing that we have to get across in an image or whatever. And so that really just discussing that stuff with them really gets us on the same page and kind of in the
Yeah.
same mindset, I think.
And I guess too, like if you're ever fortunate enough to like form a friendship with that person too, like you kind of get, yeah, I guess ultimately like the easier you can communicate with that person or like be in their head, the
Yeah.
more you can really like get on the screen what it is that they're looking for. Like
Yeah.
I've never worked with somebody um like in that capacity necessarily, but even just like that closely with someone who I didn't know before. Like I imagine that must be a bit daunting to like go on a project with someone you don't necessarily know. I mean, like you
It is.
guys are going to be basically best friends,
Yeah.
hopefully, for like months on end.
Yeah. I
And if you
mean,
don't get along, you're still going to be working together for months on end.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the best things is meeting someone you've never met before and like having that like nervous like first date kind of
Right.
energy, and then by the end you're good friends and hopefully like collaborators for life. That's like the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I think yeah, it's hard to kind of quickly get there with somebody. And so I often say to collaborators, like, I'm okay if you don't like the idea I'm going to pitch you, but like that, because that helps me in many other ways. Like now I know what you don't like here, or we can discuss why you don't like that, or why I like that, or whatever. And that just helps you get so much closer. And so I think being able to, share with each other that like that's not the direction I want to go in, or that's a ridiculous idea, or whatever. It all helps you get to the end goal. And also being like vulnerable with that person, I think brings you closer and just helps you understand each other better.
Yeah. And there is definitely something to be said in any like workspace for being able to, be kind and respectful, obviously, but also just like you said, say like, I really hate that and I don't want to do that, and not getting, feelings hurt, and respecting each other's feelings on that thing. Cause it is so collaborative. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't really understand who are like outside of the industry. Because at the end of the day, your name is on this too, right? As something that you have made the look of. And if you're not happy with that, then, if you want to be proud of it on your resume and be able to show it to people and be like, yeah, look, like my name is right here. I did this. This is the thing.
Yeah. And it is such a scary, like vulnerable thing, but then it's worth it if you can, create these relationships and make something that will affect other people or be important to somebody else. Like it's really, it's really cool. It's like,
it's cool. It's crazy that it's a job when you think about it, like in the best way.
Yeah.
Was there anything on whether Astrid and Lilly, or like any project in particular that you worked on where you felt like that relationship was just like elevated, like in a good way, like you and the director were like super collaborative in like a way that was like maybe not how you expected, but in a good way?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's an interesting question.
We don't have to get too personal. If it's too much, I could be like,
no, that's not too much. I'm just trying to think of like a specific, because one of the best feelings is, being in prep or being on set and you turn to each other and you're like, that's too whatever. And you both are on the same page and you just like, or you like look at each other and you both know what the other one is thinking. Like that's one of the best feelings, because you just know that you're both heading in the same direction, which is really good. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it was a weird question. So yeah.
No, it was a good question.
Yeah.
It was a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to keep talking about Astrid and Lilly a little bit. Well, what is your favorite part about being a cinematographer? And how would you personally define like the craft and how it fits into the storytelling, like we've been talking about? But then on the flip side of that, what do you find to be the most challenging part? Not necessarily a part that you don't like, but just maybe a part that you find spicy.
I like that. So yes, so my favorite part is probably the collaboration and with other artists, and getting to like constantly hone your craft. Like you will never know everything and no one will ever know everything. And that's especially about film and cinematography. And it is like this moving, growing thing. And so that's really nice and exciting. And so you can always learn from somebody on set, and you're only going to get better, basically, I guess. And so I love that kind of like that everyone is a collaborator and that everyone is going to like help you get to this place and you're going to help them. And there's something really like nice about that. And it's a community. And I think that's really cool. I'm going to say a couple things because there's a lot of stuff I love about
Say all of the things. I want to hear all of
them. I love getting the honor and the gift of being able to like travel to different places and experience different things and help tell other people's stories. I think that's just a really huge honor and something that, you know, is very specific to film. Being able to like come into somebody's home and record their story, or being invited into a family's home when you're filming somewhere and invited to like dinner, just things that you wouldn't normally experience if you weren't in this business, or I'm sure other businesses do it too, but it's just a really special thing that I'm really grateful for in film. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely did.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so yeah, the other part of the question, which was, unless you have more favorite things, because I do want to hear all of them.
I mean, I think this whole conversation is going to be my favorite things.
Good. Yeah, just how you would personally like define the craft and how it fits into storytelling as a cinematographer.
That's hard. I think cinematography is about servicing the story and finding a way to service the story and best create like an atmosphere and help portray the themes and characters and all of that stuff through light, framing, composition, all of those wonderful artistic things. And also, you know, supporting the director and collaborating with the production designer and everyone working together to kind of get to that place of servicing the story. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, and I understand too that you really like to work with your hands, and that you've designed some prism filters that were used on Astrid and Lilly, and that you're maybe even into welding, which is really cool. So I would love to hear about a lot more of those things, because, you know, for obvious reasons.
Sure. That's awesome. Yeah, I created some, I call them beveled filters. They're just glass, and I beveled like edges of them. And
so you physically like made them yourself? Like, yes. You didn't just design them, you actually made them?
I didn't physically cut the glass.
Okay.
I went to a glass cutting store.
Okay. Yeah, but like it wasn't like you went to someone like Tiffin and was like, make me this filter. Like you were like, no, I'm going to make and design this filter.
Yeah, I went to I was talking to Catherine Lutz about something. I can't remember what. But she had told me, I think we were talking about like painting filters or something. Because I really wanted to try that on something, and I haven't done that yet. And so she was like, yeah, she was telling me about this like local glass store on Dundas that she went to get just like glass cut so that she could like mess with it. And so I was like, ooh, maybe I'll get like the glass cut into beveled filters. And then I can like put that in front of the lens, or like hold it in front of the lens and move it. And so I just kind of drew up sketches, and I went in and I asked them if it was possible, and then I altered the sketches, and then they made them for me. And yeah, they're definitely not perfect. I think I need to do another round. But yeah, I mean, that's also something that is so cool about this job, is that you can do stuff like that. Like if you have
like there's no rules in a good way.
Yeah. It's funny because I find that I get stuck often in like what I should do, or like what other people are doing and how I should be doing things, and like what lights I should be using and all these things. Like there are guidelines and rules, I guess, but you should also break the rules. Like it might not always work, but you'll always learn something. And yeah, I mean, I think that's such a cool thing to get to do that. And some things cost money, but some things don't cost money. You can just like, I don't know, put gels in front of a cookie and like, I don't know, it's like cut your own cookies. Like there's tons of stuff you can do that isn't super expensive, but could really elevate a scene or something like that.
Yeah, because when it came to those filters that you were just talking about, like what kind of scenes in Astrid and Lilly were you using them for? Like when did they come into play?
Mm-hmm. We used them for 2 monster scenes. I don't know if I can talk about that.
Yeah, if it's a spoiler, then don't worry about it. But
Yeah, there's like a specific visual monster thing that we were going for, and so I used them for that. But it was also to create uneasiness. Actually, this also kind of comes back to Requiem for a Dream, which I didn't realize before. Like their use of creating like different camera movement and different like jarring things. So you can use them in a sense where you're, doubling. That like visual of doubling images is always like can be creepy or can be beautiful. So yeah, it depends which direction you want to head in, but I was definitely using them as kind of this like to create unease and to create like kind of this like you don't really know what's happening, and sometimes they're disappearing and sometimes they're coming back into frame because beveled glass can do that, which is so cool. Yeah, and I've used them on other projects too, where I did this boxing scene, and so this person had head trauma and they were boxing, and so I used them in front of the lens to kind of like, it was hard for them to focus and they're seeing doubles and stuff like that. So it can be used in a couple different ways.
Well, yeah, because am I right in imagining that it's almost like a kaleidoscopy kind of effect, like maybe not quite that intense, but like you said, seeing doubles, like there's like layers of
and I created a couple of different filters so that you can like layer them so it can become like more intense or less intense. It's not, I wouldn't say it's as intense as a kaleidoscope effect, because those can be quite like there's multiple kind of cut angles and stuff. But yeah, like you can kind of, I designed them so you could kind of like layer them up in the matte box and stuff.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, and then so to the welding, like how did that, was that something that you were into before cinematography and it kind of just worked out that you could start like making stuff for cameras, and like what have you made that you're particularly maybe proud of, or anything that was like a particular flop that you think was funny? Because I like those stories too. How does that play in?
I actually haven't welded anything for cinematography. I did take a welding class in like high school, and that's also like something that I think is really cool about cinematography, is that it is like artistic and theoretical and can be very hands-off, but then it can also be really hands-on. Like you can physically design stuff, or like grab a glass that has cool, crystal cuts in it and put it in front of the frame, or like have a piece of gel in front of the frame, or like you can really get hands-on and create things. And I really love doing that. I love cutting my own cookies and kind of doing all that stuff. So I haven't done any specific welding for cinematography. I haven't welded in a while.
You've got it in your back pocket though, and that's more than most people can say. I mean,
whatever. I would definitely need to take a class because it's been a while, but that's cool. I mean, think outside the box. It's so, you can do so many different things. And I don't know, I definitely like personally, I find that pressure of like what other people are doing, like this job is very, or industry can be very like comparative. And that's really, I find it difficult to kind of deal with that. So it's always really freeing to just like kind of just run at an idea and just try it. And
I think that I also believe that's the way to do it. I mean, not that I'm a cinematographer, but just in general, like you said, thinking creatively, like it's such a tech heavy job, but yet at the same time, it's like you have that artist brain too, that's like trying to create something. And so in that same vein, I guess, like there's, especially now, it's like such a rat race to keep up with like the tech that's coming out. And obviously we're going into now the world of like things like VR and stuff. I can't even keep up. LED panels. Do you feel any sort of like pressure to keep up with those sorts of things to be able to like stay in the know, or do you kind of go in the opposite direction and be like, you don't need stuff to make something good? Like, where do you fall on that spectrum when it comes to gear specifically and like keeping up?
Yeah. Oh man, I've always found gear to be intimidating, just because there's so much stuff. And uh, I think earlier on in my career, that was always kind of like people would always like want to talk gear and like would kind of use it as like an aggressive thing. So I kind of was like,
it's almost
I
like
don't
a
like
chest beating thing. Yeah, like
yeah. And so I never liked that. And I always felt like, oh, I'm never gonna, you know everything. So I think I'm kind of in both worlds. Like I think that you can make, I don't think you need toys to make beautiful stuff. And I don't think you should use a crane unless it makes sense. And I think you can make a beautiful film with like your shoulder in a camera. Um, yeah, so it's like, but I also think that knowing lenses is going to help you, and like getting to try different lenses will just help you better tell the story. So like maybe you want a vintage pair of like set of lenses, or maybe you want something smoother, cleaner, maybe you want different filters to help you achieve different looks. And so usually like before a project, I'll dig into like the themes and what I want to achieve with the look, and then what gear can help me. And also like rental houses, there's a lot of people that are working there that want to talk to you about gear and want to talk to you about like interesting lenses. But I also think like building like community is so important in film. And I have a lot of friends who work in all departments that I can call up and say, hey, like, what about this? Or ask a question and not feel judged. And I think that's really important. And I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of like, I always thought, again, like maybe in the comparative vein or something, that like that was a weakness to kind of reach out. But I'm definitely over the last couple of years, like that's such a gift to have that community. And you should reach out if you're afraid, just like go for it. Everyone is so nice. Most people are really nice. And even if one person won't help you, like someone else will. And there's also an online community, Facebook groups and stuff. And so I think it's really like, I don't know, I think you could go, as long as you're supporting the film and the story, you can kind of go any different way, and you don't need gear, but also gear is really nice. So it's always like that weird balance. That was a long answer. Was that okay?
No, that was fantastic, because it was very relatable for me on a personal level too, because I found especially like when I was first starting out, I just asked everybody every question I could think of. And I don't think I was once met with any sort of like, don't ask me questions. Like, even if you're talking to like the crustiest person on set and you're like, hey, I have a question about what you're doing. They're like, people love to just show you what they're doing or why they're doing it or explain it to you. Like, yeah. That's the thing I probably learned most through this whole experience of the camera assisting. Is like, if you just ask people questions, they want to tell you about it. And they're not like, you're an idiot, you should know that. Because that's what the fear is, I think, of asking those questions, like you said.
Absolutely. It's such an intimidating, it can be such an intimidating space. And I think also being a woman, if you're working, not that men aren't nice, but if you're working with a bunch of men, it can be a little more intimidating, maybe because there are other things that play into like, maybe even if it's just in your head, or you think that, they're going to think that you don't know what you're doing or whatever. I don't know. That's such a great thing to be on a set and get to soak up all this information and having people that want to like talk to you about stuff. And that's like the best. And that's so cool that you are doing that too. And that you're not afraid, you're just like going for it. That's so awesome.
Well, I think initially it was just like a naivety, right? It was just like, I genuinely have no idea what's going on. The first time somebody asked me, if I'd had a hot sub that day. I was like, I didn't get a sub, but like I had some spaghetti. Like, are there sandwiches too?
Yeah. Yeah. There's so
Really
much
just
lingo.
no, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun once you know it all at the same time.
Yeah. No, you're asking if you've had a hot sub.
Yeah. Exactly. So what did you end up using camera and lens wise for Astrid and Lilly, and how did you decide to pick those things?
We used RE minis, Alexa minis, and we used vintage super speed, Zeiss super speed set. So it's kind of like ultra speed and super speed mix. And we went that route because I wanted something that could physically fit into a bunch of different scenarios, that was physically easier to work with. And you could do, different builds with the body of the camera relatively quickly, because time is always a factor, but especially on this show, it was very tight time wise. And then I went with, and also like the minis are great, and there's many other reasons why the minis are great, but like the color space is lovely and it's easy to get looking in a good place really quickly, and it has a good dynamic range and all those great things. And then I went with vintage lenses because I really wanted to bring like character into the image, and I didn't want it to be crisp, and I wanted it to be a little warm and have some character, and I really wanted to have nice flares, which we didn't get to play with a ton. I kind of had dreams of playing with flaring more and doing interesting stuff with that. We definitely used it in a couple scenes, and I think it's coming up. There's a couple episodes coming up where there's like some beautiful flare stuff, but yeah, I like that character. Yeah, that's kind of like unique to the lenses. They were a little bit tricky to work with because it's kind of a mixed set, and Panavision, who did all of our gear, did a great job of kind of getting us like the best set that matched the best. But we still had to like adjust Kelvin for certain lenses were warmer than others and stuff, which was really interesting, and kind of challenge the team a little bit to work with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with the choice of those.
Awesome. And yeah, when it came to, I mean, I know you had Aaron Elliott, the digital imaging technician, on set with you. When it came to like, did you guys use like specific LUTs and stuff like that, or was he just like coloring for what was happening at the time?
Yeah, Aaron is amazing. Everyone should
shout out to Aaron Elliott.
Who's the best. Yeah, we kind of designed something specific for the show, because the show is very we used a lot of color.
Even in the trailer, it's like even their wardrobe, like everything was very colorful for sure.
It's a very colorful show, and our production designer Helen did an amazing job of like designing and painting different spaces, especially the school. There's a lot of like greens and blues, and I mean the lockers are like yellow and red. There was a lot going on, and it was like really cool to get to film in those spaces. And then in wardrobe for sure, lots of color going on, and then we used a lot of like color and lighting for different monsters. Each monster kind of has their own color, which was kind of really cool part of the show. And then also just in the school, there's like a certain color palette, and outside of the school, there's like a more like severe color palette, and it's kind of a little like scarier. So it was quite challenging, but Aaron did an amazing job working with me. We kind of designed a LUT based on some of their test footage, and then really in that first week we like honed it, and then he created different looks for different spaces. Like the school kind of has its own look. And when we're using like urban vapor on lights, that kind of has a different look. And so he would be live color grading with me on set, but he would also just kind of have like a good basis to start from, and then we'd kind of push it from there. And again, because we were doing so many different colors and so many different like monster specific colors for different episodes, it was kind of fun to kind of make sure those colors are looking right in all of the different spaces. And also just looking the way we wanted them to look, which we did quite a bit of testing with. Our camera test was very much dominated by monster colors. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to watch it. I haven't, is it 3 episodes around now, or is it more than that?
I think it's 5 now.
5?
4 or 5. Yeah, 5.
I don't have cable anymore, so
that's okay.
I watch more TV.
It's online, but also take your time.
Is it online now?
Yeah, it should be on like Crave and CTV Sci-Fi. I think you can access it on different web platforms. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be watching for sure.
Yay.
And I'm also curious, in a similar subject, I guess, like, what are your views on capturing things in camera versus post? Like, I know, you know, the whole fix it and post thing is like a bit of a cliche joke in the industry sort of thing. So like, yeah, talk a little more about that if you have thoughts and feelings.
Oh my God, I've got feelings. I love to capture as much as I can in camera. I think that's why I liked creating like glass filters and stuff. I love being able to do practical effects. And that's what one of the great things about Astrid and Lilly, like all of our monsters were practical. And it's so much fun to get to play with those monsters like in real spaces. I find it really exciting and enjoyable. And then you get to use like colored light, and like it's really fun. And I also think just being able to deliver the best image as close to where you and the director and the team see it being as possible before it gets to post is like always the best, no matter what, especially with color, like with Erin's job. Being able to have an image that everyone's going to be looking at for quite a while in post before you get to do the final color, everyone gets used to that kind of like look. And so sometimes it can be really hard to change it after. So if you can kind of provide the closest image to what you want in the end, then it just makes everything else so much easier. And also it's fun to do like as much as you can practically. It often takes time on set, but I think it's just, there's nothing better than getting a practical effect or an in-camera gag, or like we did a lot of like fun things like that on this show, where it's like also really satisfying as like a team, for everyone is like pulling off this thing. And it's also just like really cool to get to do that and not, you know, be like, oh, there's a green screen, I wonder what that's gonna look like in post.
And it so much speaks to like the artist brain part of the job, like we were talking about earlier too, right? It's like getting your hands dirty and like doing the thing. Like that's the part that you get like the personal satisfaction from, for sure.
Totally. And VFX is so important, and we did use like quite a bit of VFX on this show, and they did like an amazing job. And that is also an art form in itself. And it's, you know, some things you just can't do practically, or they'll look better with VFX. But I'm always a big, like, I love practical monsters and practical effects as much as possible. I think it's just so much fun to be in a space with that kind of, and have someone create a monster. That's so amazing.
Yeah. I'm very jealous that I missed out on seeing those things, honestly, because even just seeing a few behind the scenes things, it's like, oh, they really like, that person was in hair makeup for a minute.
Yeah. And like, that's also amazing. Like, I imagine it would help an actor to get to play like kind of in that space too, but also, yes, the time it takes and the team that it takes to put that all together. And we had so many good teams, hair and makeup and practical effects and SFX. It's just like there's so much goo. So
yeah, there
so
was a lot of
awesome
goo.
for multiple teams to be kind of like building this like thing together. It's so awesome.
So now that you're, I mean, compared to, I mean, when you were younger, now that you're working cinematographer and watching movies, like, do your friends hate to watch movies with you, or do they love to watch movies with you?
I don't know. I think I'm pretty fun.
Yeah, like what the real question is what is the movie watching experience for you now? Like, do you feel like you get more out of watching stuff, or does it kind of take you out of it when you notice something? And what are like some things that you have found really visually impactful about, whether it's just kind of movies in general, or like, you know, do you have a most recent like Requiem for a Dream experience that's happened in the last like couple of years?
Oh, amazing. I can't think of anything specific off the top. Like there have been so many good movies and so many good shows. That
especially the last couple of years when we've all been stuck inside, like with not much
yes.
to do but consuming content.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, definitely in terms of like watching stuff, it's usually hard to not be aware of, you know, how they do that, or oh, I noticed that thing, or whatever. So maybe that is annoying sometimes. I try to keep it inside.
I ask it that way because my friends always give me a hard time. Like most of my friends are like, oh, I didn't think about movies that way until like you told, or you know, you described to me how difficult the shot was or how difficult the scene was. And other people are like, will you please shut up? I just want to watch the movie.
But then that's also awesome, because then you're watching this thing that is like, they pull it off beautifully and you're like, wow, that's like really amazing. That was really hard. And you just like love it so much more because of that. Yeah. But it's also really nice to get lost in something and have the story take over, and that part of your brain just shut off, and you can't help but be drawn into you know, an emotional scene or whatever. Yeah, I think oh my God, I don't know what I'm gonna say here. Yeah, I think I do a bit of both, maybe. And hopefully it's not too annoying.
No, it makes, I mean, I personally love it. And like, you know, watching a movie or a show, whatever it is, and just understanding, like I've felt emotional before when I've watched something that's not actually necessarily emotional from like an acting perspective, but I'm like, how did you make that happen? Or like, even if you watch the behind the scenes first and then you watch the movie and you have the context for like how hard the thing was to do, and it's just like overwhelming. In the best way. Like people who don't necessarily know how movies get made don't necessarily like it's more of a passive thing. And I just find I get a lot more out of it now than I used to, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, like, I mean, actors are amazing, but like even just on Astrid and Lilly, just standing at the monitor and watching takes, like I definitely cried multiple times on set, because it's just so like they just totally drew me into this moment, even though I'm like, you know, looking at the lighting and blah blah blah, all these other things. But you know, it's just when it all comes together, and it can be really powerful and totally draw you into it, and you forget about everything else. And
those moments when like you hear a director forget to say cut, right? Because they're like, oh sorry, I was actually watching the movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So obviously, I mean, women are still less represented in camera specifically, and tech heavy departments than men. When you were coming up in the industry, did you have any like specific situations where you kind of, like when I was coming up, I didn't see a lot of women around me, but I didn't really notice that until I did work with female camera people. And then I was like, oh, like I never felt like I couldn't do this because I was a woman, but there's something to be said for then seeing yourself in it and being like, oh, this is actually, I belong here more than I even realized I did. Like, did you have any experiences like that coming up?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, visual representation is so important. It doesn't matter what anyone says. Like, just like being able to see someone that you can relate to doing something or on screen or whatever it is just like, it can be a game changer. Like, and you may not even understand the effects, but it's really important. Yeah, I mean, I didn't in when I started out, I didn't fully get it. Like I was kind of like, I want to do this. And it was challenging. And over time, I kind of experienced things that made me realize the challenges that I might have to face that maybe some other people don't have to face. And so that was kind of eye-opening and difficult. And also just exactly what you said, like I didn't see a lot of other people that were doing what I was doing, especially in the grip department, in the electric department, in the camera department, and DOPing. But I mean, just in the last couple of years, I'm seeing so many women joining, and I just worked with a team on a show where, you know, the gaffer was female or non-male identifying, and same with the key grip, and it was like an amazing experience. Not to say that I haven't worked with great men and all these other things, but it's just it's very rare in the electric and grip department, and so it's really exciting to get to work and see that representation. And definitely I'm seeing like female DPs all over the place, and it's fucking awesome. I used to get people coming up to me all the time on set and saying, oh, like, you're the first female DP I've ever worked with. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of sad. Like, it's nice, but it's also like sad that and that shouldn't be the way. So hopefully that's changing, and I think it is changing. And that's really like, that's cool to hear that like you didn't necessarily like feel any negativity or anything. Like, that's great too.
No. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It's like I've been very fortunate, I think, to work with men who have nurtured me to where I've gotten to be. Like I've had, you know, overall, I mean, everybody works with, you know, the scattered person who wasn't great, but overall, the people who got me to where I feel like I am now, starting off, it was all men, right? And then, like I said, I didn't really realize until I was working on my first show with a female DP, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, seeing her do it was like, oh, and she's in charge, but she's like assertive, but she's also just like awesome. And
yeah,
like, I don't know, she put people in their place if they needed to be, but not in a way that was, and she was just one of the most lovely professionals and across the board that I've worked with. And I was like, oh, you can have it. You can do all of it.
Yes.
You can just be that person. Yeah. Yeah. So that was refreshing for sure. And definitely just changed my outlook in general. Like, I was like, cool. This is a thing that I could do if I wanted to, and I worked hard enough, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you have any advice, I guess, for anybody who's aspiring women or anyone who wants to be in the business, about how to go about it, but also how to take care of themselves doing a job like this? Because I think personal health and well-being kind of goes out the window sometimes, not necessarily intentionally, but just like by necessity. And obviously changes are coming in the industry, I think, but it seems like it's going to take a hot minute. So yeah, would you have any words of advice for people who are like trying to get where you are without also completely burning themselves?
Yeah, that is I mean, I am definitely still trying to find that balance of work and life, and trying not to burn out and all these things. It is such a challenge, because, you know, you're in a project, and I always get so drawn into what I'm doing that I like to dive deep into what I'm doing and focus on that. And that can be bad because it's hard to take time off, or like you want whatever you're working on to be the best. So you want to give it everything you have. And that's lovely and great. But it's also like if you aren't looking after yourself, you're only going to go so far. And it can be really unhealthy to work in this industry. So I'm like constantly working on that, and I have not found
I don't think
like an answer. Like it's just really hard. And I've known a lot of people that have burnt out, and I think you just have to try and be aware of what you need and what your body's telling you, and you have to listen to it. And you also have to know that, you know, the job is important and your work is important, but there is life outside of that, and you have to look after yourself to be able to continue. It's such a hard thing because you can get so like everyone on set is like, give it all you got. And it's just like, it's like, yes, but also make sure you're okay. And
it's not like you get like
this.
Yeah. And outside of your lunch, it's not like you have assigned like coffee breaks or something, right? It's like, oh, why am I so mad? Oh, it's I haven't eaten food in like who knows how long, right? Like there's no structured time for you to like take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I find sometimes too, like specifically with food, like you can be working so hard that you aren't like, oh, I'm not that hungry or whatever. Like you can get, work a 14-hour day and not really be looking after yourself. And I mean, there's my crews are always so lovely, and like people are always like bringing me water or like making sure, like, can I fill up your water bottle, or do you need anything? And that's like huge. And I need to get better at like not needing that. But there is, if you're working with good people, there's always, you're all kind of look after each other. But yeah, it's hard. And especially as a DP, like, because if you don't really have a lot of downtime, like you're lighting, you're setting up the shot, you're talking to the director, and then if you're operating, then you're shooting, or even if you're not operating, you're watching the monitor. There's not a lot of downtime to look after yourself.
Well, even for a DP like yourself, like when you wrap, like you're still mentally working.
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely. And you're always like trying to jump ahead and like sending crew ahead to work on the next scene, or whatever you can do, talking about tomorrow, trying to figure out the weather or like something. Like there's always something happening, which makes it like really interesting, and it's never dull. And there's always something to like figure out or work on. But yeah, that's such an important thing. And yeah, I don't know if I have a good like,
I think there's more like awareness coming out about it now, like whether it's like accidents that have happened on set or just in general, like people getting in car accidents, driving home, like it's starting all these conversations about like, just because you can work somebody that many hours doesn't necessarily mean you should. Like, there's something to be said for that, or like having people at their most productive and rested as possible versus dragging the day out. But that's a whole other hour-long conversation.
Definitely. And just like, I guess the thing there is like, it's really hard. It can feel really hard to try to like advocate for yourself and what you need, especially like there are many factors that could be pushing you in a different direction. But yeah, that's definitely something as an industry that we need to address. And I think it is, people are talking about it, which is really important. And we have to just keep talking about it.
Yeah, totally.
Figure it out.
I think we're just about out of time, but before we go, is there anything, just curious, like what you're currently working on and what you've got like maybe coming down the pipe that you'd like to talk about or plug at all?
I don't know.
Anything that you're allowed to talk about that you want to
I'm trying to think of it. I just worked on this really cool variety show I don't know when it's coming out though. It'll be on CBC Gem. But I'll post about that as soon as I can. And I've got some like close collaborator projects coming up that I'm really excited about. People that I've worked with, my entire career basically. And so I'm really excited to like get back into creative conversations with them and design stuff with them. Yeah, I don't think there's anything specific I can talk about. Go watch Astrid and Lilly.
Go watch Astrid and Lilly on Sci-Fi Network, right?
Sci-fi, CTV Sci-fi. It's on Crave. Yeah, it's a great show with great people, and it's a really important show, I think, too. That's something I just want to talk about is like one of the best things of this job is when you get to put something out into the world that will mean something to other people and could change the world maybe a little bit for the better. That's like such a gift to get to do that and to get to work with other people on stuff like that. And I think Astrid and Lilly Save the World is definitely a project like that. And I'm so grateful that I got to work on it. I got to work on it in Newfoundland. And I'm so excited to work with you, Kyla, in the future.
Ew. Same.
Yeah.
I'm excited just thinking about it. So just going to wrap up and say thank you, Anne, so much for doing this. And thank you to viewers for taking in the Scene in Her Masterclass. You can check out Anne's reel and profile at anntipper.com and tune in on March 28th for a discussion about festival submission strategies and press.
Amazing. And thanks so much to the festival for having me and to Kyla for talking with me. That's so lovely. I've had a great time. So
Me too. Thanks.